Hello, welcome to Miniature Arms, my name's Stuart, and welcome to another 15mm World War II vlog. Now, vlog number 3, which is this one, was supposed to be all about my specific terrain for my specific project. And it mostly will be about that, but there's been some developments and some changes in the project and the way I'm going to do it, so I will cover that off first. So a lot to get through today, bear with me, we will get there. So here we are with a bit of a table full. So you'll see most of the stuff that I want to talk about today. Some miniatures at the front, based very differently, and we'll come back to that very shortly. And then lots of terrain, lots of boxes, and lots of books. So those of you who watched the first vlog will know how I came to the Pacific project, and it was very much inspired by watching the Pacific series after watching lots of other sort of war films, and I knew that it was something I wanted to do for a while. Of course, I'm always inspired by the similar kinds of things, so watching films, reading books and things are always likely to lead me into other areas, and I think I'd always planned to do more areas of World War II as well. So I saw online on eBay actually some more battle group books as a bit of a bargain. I saw Overlord, which is the older version, which is now split into two, I believe, and then the Market Garden and the Wacht am Rhein, sorry about the pronunciation there, supplements. So we're kind of looking at D-Day landings and Market Garden and Ardennes Bulge sort of period. So I picked them up because they're an absolute bargain, knowing that I was going to go ahead and watch Band of Brothers again, and as soon as I watched Band of Brothers again, I was going to want to do a more of a late war Northern European themed project. Now I won't flick through those books today. I've already derailing this project and this video and what vlog 3 was supposed to be about enough just by showing them, and I've got a lot more stuff to show you as well. But needless to say, I felt like I was sort of along the way to being set up for future projects. Now the next box is very familiar to many experienced historical war gamers. So this is one of the many starter sets for Flames of War, and it's the Hit the Beach starter set. And I managed to find that online for posted about £32, which is a good £15 under RRP. Absolute bargain, loads of stuff in there. So I thought, right, I'll snap that up while I've got the chance. That will be perfect for my future, or to make a start for my future project. For D-Day and onwards. And for those of you who don't know what's in there, you've got some German Panzer Grenadiers with some Panzer IVs. You've got lots of Shermans, I think 7 Sherman tanks, 5 75mm and 3 76mm, and then you've got a platoon of US parachute regiment as well. So we're right there with Band of Brothers, day -1 sort of thing. You could do the 101st Airborne if you wanted to, etc, etc. So I picked it up because it's such a bargain. I was really impressed with the set. It's really well presented. The miniatures are really, really nice. So that got me thinking a little bit. I can't remember how much I spoke about this in the first vlog, but I really wanted to do single basing because I had it in my head that I didn't like the Flames of War style basing. Even though many of the people who play Battle Group are playing on multi-basing and playing on the Flames of War style of basing and using their Flames of War armies, I wasn't going to play Flames of War, so I was going to go for this individual basing. And I won't lie to you, there was something I didn't like about the basing I did. I think it looked too chunky for the scale of the miniature. They didn't look quite right on their own. And there was something that was irking me. And then when I got this set and looked at how well the miniatures go on the bases, I just had this massive U-turn in terms of what I thought looked nice. So I rebased the army. And I think it looks loads better. Now, as you'll notice, well, you may notice, there's a lot more than there was there for Battle Group alone. So Battle Group I was going to be playing Battle Group, and I still intend to play Battle Group at platoon level only. So we're looking at 1/2 of this lot there. But I thought, well, maybe as I'm basing it for Flames of War, maybe I should look at playing Flames of War as well, or at least making an army that I could play Flames of War for as I'm basing it that way. It would be silly not to. So I picked up the D-Day American Flames of War book and the unit cards that go with it, and I've got the command cards on the way for those of you who are familiar with Flames of War. These books, I didn't realise how cheap they were. So this is a hardback book, they're around 100 pages, and they're they're like £13-14, which is just unheard of from any other game system. I'm guessing they Battlefront must use it as a bit of a loss leader. And just really, really nicely presented, full colour. And again, I won't turn this into a review. I'll talk about the books a little bit more in future vlogs, because I do want to get back to talking about terrain, which is what this is supposed to be about. But I decided to purchase those booklets. And then, of course, I always do both sides. So while I'm doing Japanese for the Pacific, I need Germans as well. So I picked up the German book. And I'm on the lookout now for the unit cards or command cards. No one has them in stock anywhere, but there's no hurry, because I'm not going to be playing that for a little while. But as you can see, I've kind of pivoted quite heavily with the way the game's going to go. Now I'm still planning on playing Battlegroup, but I'm planning on playing some Flames of War as well, and maybe even mixing my campaigns between the two, and looking at the kind of company, or double company sized games with Flames of War, and then doing sort of platoon level stuff with Battlegroup, and maybe switching it around that way. And I think that might be a really nice way to do it. Having read the rules for Flames of War now, yes, it's not going to be anywhere near as realistic, and it's not designed to be as Battlegroup. And I know it's designed with competitive gaming, for many people, but you don't have to play competitively, and I've got absolutely no intention, as it stands, for playing any competitive war game really, and I can't see me going to any tournaments really for Flames of War. That's not the way I'll be building the project. However, I don't have anything against competitive wargaming, and I don't mind people who play points match games, and I'll happily design a points matched army and have a game with someone. Just doesn't bother, as long as they play the game in the right friendly, laid back, fun kind of manner. I really couldn't care less either way, and if the point system there, it helps me construct armies, then great, but I definitely won't let it hinder me in what I want to do for the project. And we'll move on to that now and talk a little bit about how this works for the Flames of War side of things for the Pacific side. Now, I've never played Flames of War before, but something I've found out very, very recently. I knew there was a new edition out and had been out for a few years, but I wasn't quite aware, and I was a bit confused from looking at their website about what periods and what armies fell into what versions of the rules. And I found out pretty quickly that the Pacific isn't really very well supported at all at the moment, and that the sort of the three books that you use to run Pacific games. So I think Rising Sun is the overall Japanese one, but then there's one called Banzai, which is based about the Pacific War against the Americans, and Gung Ho is the American book. They're all version 3, and version 3 is a different set of the rules compared to version 4. So I started asking around, asking people for help. So thank you, Don Ayres, thank you, Michael Rafferty, for answering my questions and helping me initially. And then thank you, Duncan Gosling, who is, funnily enough, Duncan Gosling is a client of mine. I've painted lots of different armies for different periods and different games and things for him. And we chat a little bit. I knew he played Flames of War, and I went back to some of the conversations with him on Facebook Messenger, and I found out that he had. And I asked him for some, any good websites or YouTube channels and things. He'd mentioned Breakthrough Assault, Shoot and Scoop podcast. So Breakthrough Assault is a well-known blog. If you like Flames of War, you probably have heard of it. And Shoot and Scoop is a really good podcast for Flames of War. He didn't tell me that he writes for Breakthrough Assault, and he is one of the co-hosts of Shoot and Scoot, and I've been listening to him a lot recently. It's bizarre that I've sort of known him via the internet for a few years now, but I didn't realise, so sorry Duncan, but he's given me absolutely loads of help, and I've been listening to those podcasts and reading that blog. So I'll put links in the video description for those of you who haven't seen those things before, but do go and check them out. But anyway, back to the case in hand, and this is already long and rambly, but that's the point of a vlog, so stick with it or watch something else. It was quite hard to build forces for the Japanese and the US Marine Corps in version 4. You either find a sort of a similar kind of list and just effectively proxy everything, or go with the old books. Now, luckily for me, Battlefront have put all their version 3 books as PDFs available for free. So I've got PDFs of Banzai and Gung Ho, and I can work my list from there. There are a few things that have changed. There's some special rules, but there isn't a free update PDF that I might be able to use. There are a few changes with the stat line now. There are different rates of fire now, whether you're moving or not. So I think the best thing I can do is use the old version 3 lists, but then make up my own stat cards based on the old stats as much as possible, but then finding corresponding weapon types and things, and just making sure that where possible, update those rules to match the version 4 rules, because I want to be playing the version 4. I don't want to pick up the old set of rules for this, and then by the time I get to 1944, switch to version 4. That's going to complicate things far too much for an old brain like mine. And considering this specific project is very much a very narrative themed thing and a bit of fun, I'm never going to be taking this to events, and I'm doing both armies myself, so I can pretty much do what I want anyway without causing any headaches for anyone else. If anyone wants to come and play those games with me, they'll be using my armies, I imagine, and they'll be, use the lists. And if they don't match, I don't care, because it's a narrative-based thing. But anyway, what you can see is all the rebased miniatures, and what you'll also notice is I've not painted anything else. I touched up a stand from the ones I'd already painted. It took me a while to take them all off their little MDF bases, and they're not all stuck on. There's probably 2 stuck on per base, but it builds a very, very similar army than what you would do with Battlegroup, funnily enough. It's pretty much a 1-to-1 scale for Flames of War as well, so there's no issues there. There's the odd little thing that works slightly differently, but I can see how easy this is going to be to change into a Battlegroup army, because I'm going to be using dice for casualties. That doesn't matter. And then this is almost the same, and then each stand's almost the same as well. I think there would be 1 more man in each of these teams and things, so it's going to be really, really easy to do, to switch between the 2 using the collection I've got here. And I've got extra, because I needed a whole another platoon to make up the sort of the basic requirements for Flames of War anyway, and that's where these ones over here have come from. So I've almost doubled up on the basic stuff, but left the rest the same. So it's the same things there. We've got the 60mm mortars, the 81 light machine guns, bazookas, flamethrowers, etc., etc. These Shermans at the back are all 75mm, and I built them from the Hit the Beach set. I'm going to be painting them olive green and then using them in both armies, and then the resin one from 3D Breed, I'll probably paint that in a slightly more sort of specific based paint scheme. Both colours were used, and that gives me the ability when I'm playing Battlegroup and I'm just running the 1 tank to have that look a little bit different. The only guy that's left on his own is the poor medic, so he will end up having to stay single base, because there's no real use for him in Flames of War at all, and he doesn't really fit on the other bases properly, so I couldn't really work out how to do it, so I thought it's just best to leave it as it is. But other than that, everything's fine, and I can switch and use it both ways. I haven't even started doing it with the Japanese yet. That will be probably for the next vlog video, so I can kind of cover off what I've printed, and I've not really shown you those models. Cover off what I printed and kind of reset the project slightly. But anyway, we're already massively into this vlog, and I've not even started what the original topic of the vlog should be about. I should probably do 2 vlogs, but I'm not going to. I was going to make this a massive bumper one. So let's go on and talk about the terrain. One thing you may well have noticed underneath the table as I've been yabbering away is the big beach landing mat. Now this is from Geek Villain, and it's actually their Juno mat. They do 3, they do a Normandy one, and I can't remember what the third one is. I think it's another Pacific island, but I just prefer the look of this one. The sea looks a little bit warmer, and I think it kind of could fit for both. So you could use it for a spring or summer's day in Normandy, which is obviously where this is from. It's Juno, but it also fits quite well for warmer climes. So it's just my favourite out of the 3. Now, maybe at this scale, it may be better to have one that's the other way around with the sea on the thin edge. I will review that as time goes, and maybe even pick up the little rollout beach that Battlefront made themselves. But I do like the way this looks, and if I can make it work, I will. Now, along with the beach mat, I'd also own quite a few Geek Villain mats, and this mat here I purchased at the same time as the beach one, when this project was still going to be a bolt action 28mm one, and this is just called Pacific Jungle, and as you can see, it's exactly what you expect a Pacific Jungle mat to look like. So this will be fantastic for kind of generic jungle type games. Very, very highly detailed. If you haven't looked at Geek Villain before, I would definitely recommend it. I'm not going to haven't done reviews of this particular mat, but I have of a couple of others. There's a video on the channel somewhere. I'll find that and pop a little link up above now for you. But this one looks pretty cool. And then I've also got a few others, and I thought that this one might be useful. Now, this is a Sicily mat, so there is quite a lot of green on there as well. And my thought process would be, there are parts of the campaign that I want to look at on Peleliu, where I need a kind of fairly dry and dusty, arid mat, but with areas of green, mainly to be the Airfield. So if you're familiar with the Pacific TV series, there's 3 sort of main combats that you see covered on Peleliu. There's the beach landing, there's the fight at the Airfield, and then there's the fight in the mountains. And I want to kind of cover all 3 off, so I thought that maybe this Sicily mat would be good for that. If not, I've got an LLMA mat as well, which is obviously sandy, with little patches of grass on, but I think this one might be a good halfway house. And then the jungly Pacific-y one, I'm not sure. I'll probably use the main jungle one for the mountainous areas, even though it was pretty muddy, I think, at least in the films. But yeah, you know, I can't have everything. So you'll have seen it on the table as I've scanned around, but let's talk about a little bit about the other terrain that I have on the table already. And it's not everything I need by a long stretch. Definitely jungle-wise, for when I do the larger sectors of the game, I'm going to need more jungle terrain. But what you see in the centre here, and a few other bits dotted around, I'm not going to show every single piece or turn it into a review, is some custom-made terrain from Warpaint figures. And those of you who are regulars of the channel will know I talk about Warpaint figures a lot, because I love his tufts, and I buy a lot of his 2mm tufts for my 15mm projects. And these are available on his website, if you search on his website, and again, link will be in the video description. But he hand makes this terrain and sells it as sets. So each one is slightly unique, but he does follow the same template. So you know, unless you were there comparing the 2 sets, I don't think you'd notice. But I bought them knowing I needed a lot. I didn't have time to do them all, and they're absolutely fantastic. So this is a large piece. You can buy a set with some of these smaller pieces in, and then there are sets with all this kind of scattered terrain as well. As I said, I won't show you every single piece. Go on the website and have a look, but they are really, really fantastic. Now they're obviously aimed at 28mm gaming, but they work for anything, to be honest with you. Palm trees one were sometimes smaller, sometimes larger, and I'm not too worried about it. They also do these sort of bamboo plants things. Now, maybe they're a little bit too high, but I'm guessing bamboo could grow quite high as well. I haven't got too many of them, but they just fill out the terrain. I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it, but I am tempted to get some more. They're very reasonably priced, but obviously it is handmade terrain, so it's not like buying. It's not like, you know, making your own, which would be an awful lot cheaper. So it is an investment to do it, and it has filled probably a third of a 6x4 table with the bits that I've got, which is great for the beach landing sections because it's kind of everything I need. But when I move on to the mountainous areas, I need to work out how much more of this that I need to buy or make myself. Now, I have made some bits myself. Well, I say bits, one bit here. Another video to show off now. I'll pop a little link. But I did a video about making terrain out of cheap plastic trees, and there was this big bag of some of it quite awful plastic palm trees that I bought from, I can't remember if it was eBay or Amazon. In the end, Amazon, I think. And I made some for my bolt action 8th Army desert terrain set, and I didn't need too many really. It was just to form a bit of an oasis. And this was the one test base I made for Pacific, so they're nowhere near as nice as what Stuart Faulkner has made at Warpaint Figures, but they do offer something that looks slightly different. So what I'll probably do is return to that video to remind myself how I made these, and maybe make another 6 or 7 sets up just to mix in between the stuff that he's made that I bought from him, and that will probably give me what I need, and then I can sort of maybe use the more barren muddy runs around the mountainous area and leave the lush one, lush all at one end of the table, so it looks like you're moving up into the higher ground, so to speak. But these do the job as well, and if you want to see how I made these, that it kind of shows it in that video that I've just linked. The next bit, the area I've not done too much on is thought about the airfield. And I thought that partly the way I'll do it is put a lot of the palm trees and stuff around the edges of the table, and maybe leave a space in the middle that's, I don't know, maybe 2 foot square or something like that. I need to come up with a scenario for it, and that will obviously inform the placement, but I definitely need some terrain, and I maybe need some of your guys' help with that. This is from 3D Breeze, so where all the miniatures came from. This was a file that I purchased. It was really cheap. It's only about €4, I think, something like that, really cheap. And it's a Crash Zero. So I need to paint that and base that, and that'll be something, and I'll probably print it a couple more times and break it up in different ways, so maybe there's 3 bases of Crash blown up planes, not all with pilots in. I think for the airfield it might look better with a couple that are not, but I do need some buildings for the airfield, so this is why I need some inspiration. 15mm Pacific themed airfield buildings. Now looking at the buildings in the Pacific film or the Pacific TV series, they look sort of concrete-ish, to be honest with you. It's not your kind of wooden made or bamboo type places. Peleliu looks a little bit different to some of the islands, but I would welcome, and that's just a TV program, it doesn't mean it's right, but I'd welcome your input on it, and any thoughts of any kits. I'll look at anything really, whether it's something I have to print, whether it's resin buildings or MDF kits, something I can maybe break up and look bombed out. Might be anything you can think of. I will greatly appreciate the help. That brings me on to the final part of today's video, you'll be thankful, and that is some of the kind of rocky mountainous area that I've started to build. And it's quite hard to portray really a whole mountainous board if you're using mats rather than actually building something. So I really wanted to just kind of build some large rocky areas to set as a bit of a backdrop, maybe provide some cover in one area of the table. And then I might do some sort of scatter terrain, flat bits of board with broken up rocks and mud and things, just to mix up, to go on top of that jungle mat. It just shows that it's a more of a sort of blown out area with a few bunkers and things like that. I do have some bunkers and things printed which have rules and take them in the army lists in battle group, not so much in Flames of War as yet, at least not part of your army list. Especially not with the books that I've got. I know that there's defences you could take from the D-Day books, so I might have to look at some of the rules of those and see whether I'm going to factor those in. But just kind of some blown out trenches and things, again inspired a lot by the Pacific programme. So these are just high density foam that I've carved out with a knife, a bit of a hot wire cutter, and then deliberately I used some aerosol spray, not too close, but I knew that it's high enough density that it wouldn't just melt through it like white polystyrene would, but I knew that it would eat into the surface slightly, and that's what I wanted. I want the rock to look kind of old and decayed and almost ill, and I didn't want it to just look like cut foam. And I had lots and lots of gloss black spray where during lockdown a company sent me gloss instead of matte when I ordered a crate of 12 for my work. They rectified that and sent me the right ones, but they let me keep the gloss, and I've had no use for it at all. So I actually used a couple of cans of that to base this stuff, and it ended up being a satinish colour by the time it had dried. And then I've just got in with the airbrush, and that's all I've done. So there's greys and browns and whites with the airbrush, and then inks, sort of an ochre colour, and a green with the airbrush to give that kind of mottled, aged rock look. And I think it does the job. I mean, and it works well as a little outcrop on the beach, so I'll be able to use them multiple things. I've been able to use them in multiple theatres and multiple scales really. It's going to be useful all around terrain. So I can use it as a rock on the beach or something, but I can also place it up in the background, because this beast here couldn't be used in the middle of the table, especially if you look at the scale of the miniatures when you plonk them on them, quite small. But I can build that up in one corner or one end as a mountainous terrain area. As I say, I can use them as scatter terrain as well for the smaller bits, and they're just really easy to do. And here we are at the end of what is probably an epically long vlog video. And I'd like to say, if you are new to the channel, you've made it this far, that they're not all like this, but there is certainly an element of rambling in many of my videos. But that is what the vlogs are for. They're supposed to be me spewing my thoughts out there to the ether or to the internet, and for you guys to comment and you know, talk to me about what you think, what have you learned when you've played these games, etc, etc. So something I probably didn't cover off at the beginning, basing the armies this way now means that I will not be doing 15mm bolt action. I'll stick to 28mm for my other projects for that, but I think the battle group Flames of War sort of tie-in is a much more sensible one. And there's no surprising that sort of 9 games out of 10 that I've seen on YouTube involving 15mm battle group, they're using their Flames of War armies. It just makes sense, and I think a lot of the players come from that direction. What to expect moving forward? Definitely more and more painting videos and more progress of the armies. The next vlog will probably be a little bit about the Japanese army that I have set up for battle group, but then also with it rebased, and I've got to rebase it now for Flames of War, and I'll talk a little bit about the army lists and how that works again in a future video. And I'll talk about how I'm using, once I've actually made the cards for my volume version 3 stroke version 4 Flames of War, I'll do a video where I show both army lists off and what I've got to choose from, and I'll start talking about the scenarios that I'm going to write. I think it will be 3. I think it will be beach landing, airfield, and then some kind of mountain terrain thing to really capture those favourite episodes of the Pacific series for me. I'd also be interested to know whether you think I should keep this as a 15mm Pacific vlog, or whether I should just make it a generalised 15mm World War II vlog. Both versions will cover battle group and Flames of War equally, but it's whether you think I should just put it all under one banner, and then if I have a week where I've painted some things or done some work towards the D-Day stuff and onwards, then I can talk about that there, or whether you think they should be separate vlogs. I'm completely torn about what to do. I think in one way, just to have an overall vlog for 15mm World War II would be a really nice way of keeping it all in one place without having too many playlists on the channel, etc, etc. But again, if there are people here that only want to see the Pacific based stuff, they might get a little bit annoyed if there's, you know, I've decided to paint a stand of airborne or something like that. Let me know what you think. I'm not sure what to do, so pop some stuff in the comments and let me know. Anyway, if you are new to the channel, please take a look at the other videos. There's lots of different stuff on there for different periods, reviews, painting tutorials, lots of different vlogs and things, and lots of me chatting and rambling away, as I'm sure you is no surprise. Consider subscribing to the channel if you like what you've seen on there. Give the video a like, it really helps me. And thank you very much, and I'll catch you soon.